In a post-war galaxy where humans buy alien slaves as property, one man purchases a damaged, near-silent alien girl for only $2. Everyone calls her worthless, until she looks him in the eye and says the words that change everything. "You're the one they warned me about." From that moment, the story spirals through secrets, rebellion, forbidden empathy, and a revelation that could rewrite the origin of humanity itself. The marketplace was alive with the sound of cruelty. Shouts, laughter, the clanging of cages. Beneath a sun that never truly set, metal roofs shimmered over rows of stalls, selling everything from weapon parts to alien flesh. The air was thick with dust and the oily scent of plasma fuel. Captain Rian Mercer moved through it all like a shadow, his hood pulled low, his boots crunching over cracked glass and sand. He hated this place. He hated what it represented. But hate didn't change the fact that he needed someone. Something that could navigate the mines beneath Oris 9, and synthetics wouldn't survive the radiation. He paused before the slave platform, pretending to study the listings on his wrist device while the auctioneer barked in 2 languages at once. A group of miners stood nearby, loud and sweating, tossing coins as they mocked the next item up for bid. The auctioneer gestured to the far corner, where a small figure was dragged forward by 2 guards. The crowd jeered immediately. She looked like nothing, thin, dusty, half-collapsed under the harsh light. Her wrists were bound with energy cuffs, her gray skin streaked with soot and blood. Long strands of pale hair clung to her face, hiding her eyes. A tag around her neck read in crude script, Lot 47 defective specimen. Defective, one miner spat. Probably mute, or brain dead. "Half price then," another joked. The auctioneer grinned with metallic teeth. "Half? Try 2 credits. That's right, gentlemen. 2. Enough to buy your lunch and your entertainment." The laughter that followed was sharp and mean, echoing through the square. Rian almost walked away. He'd seen enough of these auctions back on Earth before the trade collapse. Broken beings sold like scrap. But some flicker he couldn't name, made him stop. He looked closer. The girl's head lifted slightly, just enough for light to catch the side of her face. Her skin shimmered faintly under the grime, like there were threads of light running beneath it. Not cybernetic, but organic luminescence, something far older, far rarer. Then she turned toward him, and in that single movement, everything in Rian's chest tightened. Her eyes weren't alien. They were gray-blue, human in structure but unervingly deep, like twin horizons that remembered too much. And though her mouth didn't move, he actually felt, the weight of a word that never came. A silent recognition. The crowd kept laughing. The auctioneer shoved her forward, making her stumble to her knees. "Come now, Captain," the merchant called out, spotting Rian's rank patch. "For a man who commands starships, what's 2 credits? Take her off our hands before she collapses on the platform." Rian's voice was quiet. 2 credits, you said?" The laughter died a little. The merchant blinked. "You're serious?" Rian tossed 2 coins onto the table. They hit the metal with a sound that silenced the crowd. He signed the data slate without looking up. The guards unlatched her cuffs, letting them fall to the dirt. One of them snorted. "Hope you like dead weight, Captain." She didn't move when he approached. Her hands were trembling slightly, her breath shallow but steady. He reached down, and for the first time she looked at him fully. Those strange, stormy eyes seemed to search his face. Not fearfully, but as if confirming a suspicion she'd held for centuries. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. She nodded once. "Barely." He handed her his cloak and guided her toward the edge of the square. No one stopped him. The laughter started up again, meaner this time, as if they couldn't believe someone so high-ranking had wasted his credits on trash. The bazaar faded behind them, replaced by the hollow wind of the outer dunes. His ship waited beyond a ridge half buried in sand, a rusted cargo hauler converted for private runs. As they climbed the slope, she stumbled once, catching herself before he could reach for her. When they reached the top, she turned her head, scanning the empty desert as though listening for something that wasn't there. Rian keyed the access ramp. It opened with a hiss of recycled air and the smell of burnt coolant. He gestured inside. She hesitated, her gaze flicking over the hull markings. SS Ardent. Then she stepped in. The moment the door sealed behind them, Rian felt the change in atmosphere, the hum of the engines blending with the silence between them. He guided her to the med bay, motioning for her to sit on the diagnostic table. "Name?" he asked, activating the scanner. No answer. He sighed. "All right. No name, no problem." The scanner swept over her body in soft pulses of blue light. Readings scrolled across the screen, vital signs weak but steady. Cellular composition mostly unknown, energy output minimal. But one thing caught his attention. Her neural patterns weren't consistent with any known alien genome. They were familiar. He frowned, checking the calibration. That can't be right. She tilted her head slightly, watching him with unnerving stillness. He tried again. The same result, faint echoes of human neural structure, overlaid with something far more complex, fractal-like. She shouldn't exist, not according to any biological database in the known systems. He looked at her, lowering the scanner. "Where are you from?" This time, she blinked slowly, as if processing the question. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and raw, like someone relearning how to use it. "Nowhere. You've heard of." The tone wasn't defiance, it was certainty. Rian leaned against the console. "You were sold as defective." She gave a faint smile or something close to it. "To them, maybe." He crossed his arms. "Then what are you?" Her gaze met his, steady and unsettling. "A mistake that remembers." He felt the hair rise on his arms. Before he could respond, the ship's AI interrupted with a shrill tone. "External sensor anomaly detected." Rian turned toward the console. "Already? We're not even in orbit." The display flickered, distorted interference washing across the radar. No ships nearby, no storms, no traceable source. But beneath the static, a faint pulse repeated at regular intervals. He recognized the rhythm instantly, a distress signal, ancient Terran code. He froze, staring at the waveform. "That's impossible." Behind him, the girl slid off the table, standing barefoot on the cold metal floor. Her voice was calm, almost detached. "It's not impossible if you were meant to find me." He spun around. "What do you mean, meant?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the viewport, placing her palm against the glass. For a moment, the lights dimmed as the sensors adjusted to a sudden surge of energy. It was coming from her. The ship's systems flickered, warning alarms cascading across the screen. Energy output spiking, interference levels beyond measurable range. He shouted, "Stop! You're going to overload the grid." But she didn't move. Her reflection shimmered in the viewport, eyes glowing faintly with that same eerie light. "They said you'd come," she whispered. Rian's voice dropped to a whisper. "Who did?" The glow faded. She turned to face him again, her expression unreadable. "The ones who built your kind." The words hit him harder than any weapon could. He stared at her, trying to find logic in the madness. But she simply stood there, frail and steady, her presence filling the small med bay like something ancient and unspoken had just awakened. Outside, in the dunes below, a storm began to rise. Winds howling through the abandoned bazaar, erasing footprints and scattering dust into the sky. The traders didn't notice the faint flicker of light that pulsed in the air where the girl had once stood. Inside the ship, the lights stabilized. The readings normalized. The only sound left was her quiet breathing and the thrum of the engine beneath them. Rian exhaled slowly, his mind racing. He didn't know who she was, or what she meant by those words. But deep down, something in him, the part that remembered old wars and forgotten ruins, felt the truth before his reason could deny it. She wasn't defective. She was waiting. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he realized she had been waiting for him. Rian woke to silence. Not the comfortable hum of a ship in stable orbit, but the sharp kind, the kind that pressed against your ears and made you feel watched. He sat up, blinking away sleep, and realized the cockpit lights were dimmed. Artificial dawn hadn't cycled yet. The girl was sitting cross-legged on the floor near the viewport, staring into the endless black beyond. She hadn't moved all night. He rubbed his face, muttering, "You planning to sleep at all?" No answer. She didn't even turn her head. Rian sighed, checking the diagnostics on his console. Power stable. Shields holding. No signs of external tracking. The interference spike from last night was gone, as though it had never existed. He wanted to believe it had been a glitch. He knew it wasn't. When he turned back toward her, the first rays of synthetic light illuminated her face. There was something oddly calm about her stillness, like she wasn't sitting in a ship but inside her own thoughts, somewhere far away. "You eat?" he asked, breaking the silence again. "Nothing. Drink." Her lips curved faintly, like she'd heard a joke he didn't make. He frowned. "All right, listen. You're on my ship now. That means I ask, you answer. Simple enough." This time, she looked at him, her gray-blue eyes almost translucent in the half-light. Answering doesn't mean obeying. The words were quiet but cut cleanly through the hum of the ship. Rian stood still for a heartbeat, caught off guard by the precision of her tone. He wasn't used to defiance spoken so softly. It was sharper than any shout. "Are you testing me?" he asked finally. "I'm reminding you," she said, "that buying me doesn't mean owning me." The edge in her voice wasn't anger. It was something heavier, carried history. Rian crossed his arms. "You were at a slave auction. You had a tag. You tell me what that means." She tilted her head slightly, that same faint, unreadable expression crossing her face. "It means they've forgotten where they came from." He almost laughed. "What, you think I'm the one who needs reminding? Humans didn't start the slave markets, you did." Her gaze didn't flinch. "We built the markets. You perfected them." The words hit with a strange weight, as if they carried memory rather than accusation. Rian turned away, shaking his head. "You've got some nerve." He grabbed a ration pack from the storage panel and tossed it onto the console. "Eat. You'll need strength if you're going to be useful." She didn't move. "Now," he snapped. Her expression didn't change. She simply looked past him at the viewport again. "Strength isn't what you think it is." Something in the way she said it made his chest tighten. For a long second, he didn't speak. The AI's soft pulse filled the silence. Steady, rhythmic. Finally, he exhaled and muttered, "Fine. Starve. Not my problem." He turned toward the cockpit, trying to focus on his destination coordinates, but her reflection lingered in the glass. Still as stone. Eyes distant. Watching stars that weren't there. Hours passed. The Ardent drifted through the outer lanes of the Oris 9 system, following the mapped debris fields that once held mining colonies. Rian busied himself checking fuel ratios, recalibrating sensors, anything to ignore the quiet figure behind him. But the stillness made him restless. She hadn't moved once since morning. By night cycle, he finally gave up pretending she wasn't bothering him. He approached her slowly. "You're going to answer me now. Who are you?" No response. He took another step. "What are you?" Her eyes lifted slightly. "You don't really want that answer. Try me." She stood, slowly, gracefully, despite her weakness, and took a single step closer. He hadn't realized how tall she was until now. The faint glow beneath her skin pulsed like veins of starlight, subtle but visible. "I am what your kind forgot to fear," she said quietly. Rian felt his pulse quicken. "You think I'm scared of you?" Her gaze softened, almost pitying. "Not yet." He clenched his jaw. "You're going back in restraints until you decide to cooperate." He reached for her wrist, but before his fingers touched her skin, the ship's lights flickered violently. Every system blinked red for a split second, then stabilized. She hadn't moved. Rian froze. "What did you just do?" "I didn't do anything," she murmured. "Your ship reacts to what it remembers." He stepped back. "You're speaking nonsense." "Am I?" she whispered. Her voice had changed, lower, resonant, almost harmonic. It wasn't just sound. It vibrated in the air like a frequency. The hull itself seemed to respond, a soft hum rising from the floor beneath their feet. Rian stumbled back toward the console. Computer, isolate the sound pattern. The AI responded, pattern detected. Unknown origin. Cross-referencing archives. Her lips kept moving. Words unlike anything he'd ever heard, but strangely rhythmic, melodic. The AI's translation system stuttered. Language partial match found. Source, ancient Terran archive, pre-fall era. Rian's hand froze above the control. Pre-fall? That was impossible. The archives from before Earth's collapse were sealed, classified, and mostly corrupted. He recorded the audio fragment anyway, isolating her voice. When she stopped, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. Her breathing was shallow. She looked at him now, eyes faintly glowing again. I told you not to ask. Rian replayed the clip through the console. The AI processed it line by line. The translation came through fractured, half complete, but one phrase stood out, pulsing on the display. The children of man were born of fire, and one day, the fire will remember its maker. He stared at the words, his mouth dry. What is that supposed to mean? She didn't answer. She simply sat back down, her expression unreadable. Rian's voice hardened. That language is from Earth. No one speaks it anymore. You shouldn't even know it exists. She looked at him calmly. And yet I do. He took a slow breath. Who taught you that? Her eyes flickered toward the stars. You did. The console beeped. A soft, final tone as if confirming something unseen. Rian looked at the monitor, and for a fraction of a second, he saw his own name embedded in the translation metadata. Source recognition, Mercer, Rian. Then the data vanished, overwritten by static. He stepped back, heart pounding. What the hell? The lights flickered again, dimming to half power. Somewhere deep in the hull, the engines shifted tone, humming at a lower frequency. The girl didn't seem surprised. Rian tried to steady his breathing. What did you do to my systems? She closed her eyes. They remember your voice. I just reminded them who you are. He swallowed hard. You're playing with me. Her voice softened. No, I'm trying to prepare you. For what? For what happens when you remember me. Her words landed like a quiet explosion in the air. He didn't respond. Couldn't. The hum of the ship settled again, back to its normal rhythm, but the atmosphere had changed. Everything felt heavier, as if gravity itself was listening. She turned her face toward the viewport once more, watching the darkness slip past. The faint starlight traced her outline, delicate, alien, and yet achingly familiar in a way he couldn't explain. Rian backed away slowly, sitting in the pilot's chair, still staring at the frozen translation line glowing faintly on the screen. The fire will remember its maker. He thought of the flashbacks that had started since he bought her. The strange dreams of metal towers and voices whispering through the dark. They weren't dreams, were they? He shut down the console, cutting the power feed to the recorder. The AI's voice came through softly. Captain, anomaly in neural patterns detected. Suggest medical scan. He ignored it. Behind him, the girl whispered again. This time not in the strange language, but in a whisper he could barely catch. They'll come for me soon. When they do, you'll have to decide which side of the fire you stand on. He turned sharply. Who's coming? But she was already quiet again, her gaze unfocused, body still. He stared at her for a long moment, trying to read anything human in her expression. But there was nothing to read. Just that unsettling calm, as if she knew exactly how this would end. He finally muttered under his breath, You really don't bow to anyone, do you? A faint smile touched her lips. Neither did you. Once. The words froze him completely, because she said it like she knew, like she'd seen him before. Outside, the stars shifted into the red glow of Horus 9's outer orbit, the first hints of magnetic storms lighting the horizon. Inside, Captain Rian Mercer sat in silence, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. Two figures bound by something neither of them could name yet, but both could feel was already in motion. And deep beneath the noise of the engines, faint and rhythmic, The same coded pulse from the night before began again. This time, it wasn't a distress signal. It was a call. And it was answering her. The night was cold. The kind of cold that crawled through metal walls and made even the old ship groan as it cooled under the stars. Captain Rian Mercer sat in the dim cockpit, staring at the flickering console light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The alien girl, if she could even be called that, sat in the corner behind him, still and silent as she had been for days. Her skin had lost that dull, colorless tone since he'd brought her aboard. Now, faint veins of silver shimmered under her surface whenever light brushed her face. She hadn't spoken since the bazaar. Not once. Until tonight. He didn't even hear her move. 1 second, she was across the room. The next, she was standing behind him, voice soft and eerily precise. "You're the one they warned me about." Rian froze. The words weren't just sound. They hit something deep in his mind, like a vibration shaking old metal loose. Slowly, he turned in his chair. Her eyes were clearer now, faintly luminescent, watching him with an expression too calm for someone who'd been bought like junk. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice low, steady out of instinct. "You're the one they warned me about." Her tone didn't change, didn't rise or fall, but the way she said it made his pulse thrum. "Who warned you?" Her gaze flicked to the console, then to the stars beyond the viewport. "Do you dream of fire?" The question shouldn't have meant anything, but the moment she asked it, a sharp, impossible image flashed behind his eyes. Fire raining from the sky, burning cities he didn't recognize, people screaming names he couldn't remember. His breath caught as the memory vanished, leaving only the echo of heat in his chest. He stood up fast enough to knock the chair back. "What the hell was that?" he snapped, though he wasn't sure if he was asking her or himself. She didn't move. "You remember it," she said softly. "I remember nothing. You remember everything." Rian clenched his fists. "I don't know what kind of mind trick you're playing, but you were there when they burned it." His heart stuttered. "Burned what?" She blinked slowly, almost sadly. "The first colony. The one they erased." He felt dizzy for a moment, gripping the edge of the console to stay upright. The first colony. He'd heard whispers about it. A classified failure on some distant world, scrubbed from records decades ago. But he wasn't old enough to have been there. Was he? He tried to remember his early years, but there was a blank stretch, a void that had always been there, explained away as lost data from his induction files. "Who are you?" he asked finally. She tilted her head. "I was made to find you." The air seemed to grow heavier. Rian's instinct screamed that this wasn't just some damaged alien he'd bought by mistake. There was something wrong about her. Something that didn't belong in his world, or maybe something that belonged too much. He moved to the storage locker, pulled out his sidearm, and leveled it at her. "Start talking. What are you?" Her gaze didn't waver. "What are you?" she replied. The words struck harder than they should have. "Don't play games with me." Her lips parted slightly. "You don't remember your name before they gave you that one." Rian froze again. A chill crawled down his spine. He'd always assumed Rian Mercer was the name assigned to him when he joined the Alliance fleet, standard for orphans. But she said it like she knew. He stepped closer. "How do you know about that?" She backed away, not in fear, but as though giving him space to understand. "Because I was there when they built you," she whispered. He felt the deck sway under his feet even though the ship hadn't moved. "Built. Not born. Built." He laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're insane." Her eyes flickered again, glowing brighter. "You think you were human. That's what they wanted you to believe." He slammed the sidearm down on the console, his patience fracturing. "Enough." For the first time she flinched, but not from fear, from something else. Her hands pressed against her temples, and a sound like static filled the room. The lights flickered. On the console, warning symbols flashed red as the navigation systems glitched. "What are you doing?" Rian barked. "I'm remembering," she said through clenched teeth. "They locked it in me too." Then she screamed, not from pain but from release. The lights went out completely, leaving the cockpit lit only by her glow. And in that faint light, Rian saw something that made his throat go dry. Lines of code, no symbols, ancient and alive, ran across her skin like moving tattoos. He took a step back. You're not. The ship jolted violently as something deep in the system rebooted itself. A low hum filled the cabin. Then the console lit up again, showing data Rian had never seen before. Encrypted Alliance files locked decades ago, now flashing access granted. He stared at the screen. How did you? She opened her eyes. Because you wrote them. The silence that followed was unbearable. Rian stared at the terminal, the alien girl, then back at the endless stars. He didn't know what to believe. His heartbeat was wild, his throat tight. I wrote this, he asked hoarsely. She nodded. You built the code that destroyed the first colony. Then they erased you and started again. He backed up until his shoulders hit the cold wall. That's not true, he muttered, shaking his head. That can't be true. She took a hesitant step forward. You were the architect, Rian. The prototype who turned against them. The room seemed to shrink around him. Images flickered at the edge of his mind. Flashes of fire, metal, screaming. His own hands pressing against a glowing console as something catastrophic unfolded. He could almost feel the heat on his skin. He forced his breathing to slow. If that's true, he whispered, then why bring me back? Her voice softened. Because the war's starting again. And they'll need you to finish it. He looked up sharply. Who will? Before she could answer, the ship alarms went off, proximity alert. A massive vessel was descending from orbit, its signal encrypted, unreadable. Rian rushed to the console. That's not an Alliance frequency, he muttered. Her expression shifted, half fear, half recognition. It's them. Who's them? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and grabbed his wrist. Her hand was cold, too cold. You can't let them take me. If they find me, if they find you, they'll finish what they started. Who are they? He demanded. But before she could speak, a thunderous impact rocked the hull. The ship's systems went dark again. Through the viewport, shadows blotted out the stars. A docking clamp locked onto the airlock with a hiss. The girl's eyes glowed bright white now, and her voice trembled for the first time. Rian. They're here to erase you again. The ship was dead quiet except for the faint hum of emergency power and the distant hiss of cooling metal. Rian stood in the dark, staring at the reflection in the viewport. For the first time, he noticed it wasn't quite his reflection anymore. His eyes, his human eyes, were flickering faintly, like a dying circuit struggling to remember what it once powered. He blinked hard, and the light vanished, leaving him breathless and uncertain whether it had been real at all. Behind him, the girl, no Alara now, sat cross-legged on the deck, her hands resting on her knees, the silver glow under her skin pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. They'd been silent since the attack. The unknown vessel still loomed out there, barely visible through the haze of debris and shadow, scanning, waiting. Every few minutes, the ship's sensors twitched to life again, running a sweep Rian couldn't fully block. He'd rerouted power, scrambled his transponder, shut off comms, but it was like the thing knew where to look. Alara opened her eyes. They're looking for me, she said quietly. I gathered that, Rian muttered, checking the systems again. You want to tell me why? If I tell you, you'll remember. He turned to face her. You keep saying that like it's supposed to scare me. It should. Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper, grief, maybe. If you remember too much, they'll find you too. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned back to the console. They already have. The scanners flickered again, painting streaks of red light across the dim cabin. Outside, the massive silhouette moved closer. He could almost feel the vibration of its engines through the hull. It wasn't an Alliance ship, that much was certain. The design was wrong. The energy signature too sharp, too alive. Then, as he watched the readings scroll across the screen, something shifted. The symbols flashing on the display weren't human script. They weren't even Alliance standard code. He didn't know how to describe them, curved, ancient, almost organic. But the strangest part was that they felt familiar. His fingers twitched unconsciously over the keys, as if his muscles remembered what his mind didn't. He typed a sequence before he even realized it. 7 symbols, quick and fluid. The console beeped in response. The ship shuddered. Alara shot to her feet. "Stop!" He froze. "What did I do?" "You opened it," she said, eyes wide. "Opened what?" But she didn't answer. She ran to the viewport and pressed her palm against it. Outside, the massive ship was glowing now, a halo of light spreading from its core as if responding to his input. "What the hell is happening?" Rian demanded. She turned to him slowly, her expression unreadable. "It's a memory. That thing outside is a memory?" "Not the ship," she whispered. "What's inside you?" He was about to argue when a wave of dizziness hit him so hard he had to grab the edge of the console to stay upright. The room seemed to tilt. The light around him dimmed, and for a second, the cockpit dissolved into something else entirely. Towering metallic spires under an alien sky, glowing rivers of light running through streets made of living metal. He could hear voices speaking in that same impossible language, see a reflection of himself in a mirrored surface. Eyes glowing, body surrounded by the same silver veins that pulsed under Alara's skin. He staggered back, gasping as the vision snapped away. The cockpit returned, dark and cold. Sweat ran down his temples. What did I just see?" he whispered. Alara approached him cautiously, like someone stepping toward a wounded animal. "You saw what they buried." Rian shook his head. "No, that's not real. That was some kind of hallucination." "You're starting to unlock it," she said quietly. "The memory that shouldn't exist." He met her gaze, desperate and angry. "Then tell me what I am." Her eyes softened, but she didn't speak right away. Instead, she lifted her hand and placed it over his chest. The contact was electric, a shock that ran straight through him. Images burst behind his eyes again. Machines being assembled, symbols etched into metal, and a single voice echoing through it all. "He will bridge the divide or burn it down." Rian staggered back, heart pounding. "I heard someone," he said hoarsely. "A man." "Who was he?" Alara's face was pale. "The one who made us both." Before he could ask what she meant, the proximity alarm screamed. The scanning beam from the other ship intensified, slicing through their hull shielding like it was nothing. "They've found me," Alara whispered. "Not yet, they haven't." Rian dropped into the pilot's chair, fingers flying across the controls. He tried to power the engines, but the main drive wouldn't respond. Come on. They're locking onto my signature," she said. "They'll extract me if we stay here." He looked up sharply. "Extract you? You mean teleport?" She nodded once. "Or disassemble. They'll take me apart to find what I carry." Rian hesitated, then slammed the emergency release for the fuel cells. The ship lurched as half the tanks detached, floating free. "If they want a signal," he muttered, "I'll give them one." He rerouted the energy from the auxiliary power grid into the release chamber. It was a crude trick, but it might work. When the scanners hit the drifting cells, they'd read as if the ship had gone into meltdown. The beam shifted, flickering uncertainly. For a brief moment, it looked like the other vessel lost the lock. Alara's eyes widened. "You masked us." "Yeah," he said through gritted teeth. "Let's hope they buy it." But even as he said it, he saw something move on the sensors. A smaller craft detached from the main ship, sleek, black, predatory. It was coming straight for them. "They didn't buy it," Rian whispered. Alara closed her eyes. "Then there's only one way left." Before he could stop her, she reached into her chest, her skin, and pulled out a glowing shard of light that pulsed like a living heart. Rian stepped back, horrified. "What are you doing?" "If they reach me, they'll use this to find everything you were," she said. "I can't let that happen." The glow intensified, bathing the cockpit in silver light. Rian shielded his eyes. "Alara, stop." "It's too late," she said softly. "You've already remembered enough." Then the shard dissolved in her hands, scattering into 1,000 motes of light that drifted through the air like dust catching starlight. Outside, the approaching ship halted. The scanners flickered, confused, then went dark. Rian exhaled shakily, lowering his arm. What did you just do? Alara looked at him, tears of liquid silver sliding down her cheeks. I erased myself from their network. They can't find me now. He frowned. But you said if I remembered too much, they'd find me. Her expression turned distant. They still will. What? She stepped closer and touched his temple lightly. Because I didn't erase you. And before Rian could react, the ship's console flared to life again. This time showing coordinates he didn't recognize, burning bright across the display. Above them, through the viewport, a second, much larger ship was descending, silent and deliberate. And for a split second, as its shadow swallowed their small craft whole, Rian saw the emblem on its hull, a symbol identical to the one burned into his own fading vision. Alara collapsed without warning. One moment she was standing near the viewport, staring at the growing shadow of the colossal ship above them, and the next, her legs buckled, her body striking the floor with a soft metallic thud. Rian was beside her in an instant, catching her head before it hit the deck. Her skin was burning hot, hotter than any human fever could ever reach, and under his hands she felt almost like a humming engine wrapped in fragile flesh. Alara, hey, look at me. He shook her lightly, but her eyes were unfocused, darting behind closed lids as though she was trapped in a nightmare. A faint light pulsed beneath her veins, shifting rhythmically like code, too structured to be biological. He dragged her to the med bay and laid her on the diagnostics table, his hands trembling as he connected the old scanners. The machines whirred to life with a reluctant hum, flickering through a haze of static. Her vitals came up, except they weren't vitals. The readings were filled with symbols, not numbers. No heart rate, no blood pressure, just cascading glyphs running endlessly across the screen. Rian leaned closer, squinting at the shifting display. They looked familiar, somewhere between the patterns he'd seen on that alien ship and the ones in his own sudden visions. He reached for the interface and amplified the signal. The room filled with a faint, rhythmic tone, like a pulse transmitted through static. It wasn't random. It was repeating. Rian recorded the signal and ran it through the translator module he'd modified after the last encounter. It took a few seconds, and then the console began displaying fragments of words. Half-translated, fractured, incomplete. Vault, awake. Beneath, origin. He froze, reading the words over and over. Vault, he whispered. Alara stirred, a weak sound escaping her throat. Don't decode it. He turned to her, stunned that she was conscious. You're bleeding light, Alara. I can hear your blood transmitting data. You have to tell me what this is. Her eyes fluttered open, silver irises shimmering faintly. It's not blood. It's memory. What do you mean, memory? She tried to sit up, but the effort made her body tremble. My kind didn't write. We stored. Everything we knew, everything we were, encoded inside us. Each of us carried fragments. When my world died, the last of us were sent into hiding, carrying pieces of our civilization's archive. Rian's pulse quickened. You're saying you're some kind of living drive? Her lips curved into a faint, tired smile. Not drive. Seed. He backed away slowly, the weight of her words settling over him. And that signal I heard, it's not just a transmission, is it? It's activating something. Alara looked toward the floor, as though she could see straight through the ship's hull. Beneath this planet, they buried it here. The first link. The cradle. Rian frowned. Cradle of what? Of what came next, she said softly. Of you. The words hung between them like a drawn blade. He didn't move for several seconds, just stared at her while his mind scrambled to understand. I'm human, Alara. Not whatever you're talking about. You were human, she whispered. But the first humans weren't born. They were assembled, made from fragments of us, adapted for survival, stripped of memory. They sent you out when the world burned, to live without knowing what came before. You were never meant to remember. Rian felt his throat close up. No, that's not possible. Then why do you dream of fire? She asked quietly. The air left his lungs. He didn't have an answer. Before he could speak, the floor beneath them began to vibrate. It started as a faint tremor, barely noticeable, but grew rapidly into a deep, resonant thrum that made the ship's hull creak. Rian staggered and grabbed the edge of the table as tools clattered to the floor. Alara sat up, eyes wide now, glowing brighter than before. It's waking up. What's waking up? The cradle, she said. It's responding to my signal. My blood called to it. Rian sprinted to the cockpit. The external sensors were going wild, massive seismic fluctuations beneath the planet's crust, power readings that spiked off the charts. He activated the external cams. Through the dust and mist, he could see the ground splitting open in jagged lines that glowed with faint blue light, like veins spreading outward from a buried heart. Alara! It's tearing the planet apart, he shouted. She appeared behind him, unsteady but standing, her eyes reflecting the same light rising from below. It's not destruction, she said. It's rebirth. A massive pulse of energy rippled outward, and every screen in the cockpit flickered before displaying the same symbol. The same one that had appeared in his visions, in the alien ship's hull, in the flashes he couldn't explain. The ship's systems began rebooting on their own. Rian tried to override, but the controls ignored him. A soft voice emanated from the calm, ancient, inhumanly precise. Identity recognized. Neural signature found. Sequence 9, Rian Mercer. Access restored. Rian's blood went cold. What did it just say? Alara's hand trembled. It knows you. The planet shook again, harder this time. Massive slabs of stone rose from the ground outside, each etched with glowing runes. The terrain was rearranging itself, pulling upward, forming patterns visible even from orbit. Rian's scanner displayed the shape, an enormous circular structure, buried for millennia, now reactivating. It wasn't a city. It was a machine. He turned to Alara. What's inside that thing? She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. The last broadcast of my people. The one that ended them. The shaking intensified. The symbols outside began to spin, locking into place like gears in motion. Rian's calm crackled again, this time with faint whispers, fragmented voices in dozens of overlapping languages. He heard fragments of words. Return, awakening, correction. Then the ground split completely, and from within the glowing circle, a column of light erupted into the sky. It was impossibly bright, stretching all the way through the clouds. Rian shielded his eyes, shouting over the roar. Alara, shut it down. It's going to signal them. Her expression was unreadable. It already has. He froze. And then, through the light, the silhouette of a ship descended, massive, ancient, identical to the one that had appeared in his vision. The same symbol marked its hull. Rian stared, realization dawning with horror. They're not coming for you anymore. Alara looked at him sadly. No, they're coming for us. The column of light widened, swallowing the sky, and as it touched the descending ship, every system in Rian's craft shut down completely. The hum of the engines died. The screens went black. In the sudden silence, he could hear Alara's pulse. Steady, rhythmic, mechanical. The coded frequency. It matched the planet's heartbeat. And then, faintly, from deep within the comm system that should have been offline, a voice whispered in a language Rian didn't understand. Yet somehow he knew what it meant. The signal has found its source. The floor trembled again, and the light outside shifted. No longer blue, but white, pure and blinding. Alara reached out to him, her voice barely audible over the rising hum. They buried the truth beneath your world, she said. And now it's waking up. And before Rian could move, the world exploded into light. The light that had engulfed the planet faded by degrees, until it was only a dull pulse rippling beneath the crust. Rian's ship floated in the aftermath, systems flickering weakly back to life. The air reeked of ozone and scorched dust, the sky still fractured by lightning that refused to fade. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Alara sat motionless in the co-pilot's seat, eyes dimmed to a faint gray glow, and Rian just stared at the trembling horizon, trying to understand what he'd just unleashed. Then the radar blared. Multiple pings, fast, sharp, triangulating on their position. He leaned forward, the cold weight of dread settling into his stomach. They're coming. Alara didn't look up. I told you. The signal called them. Who are they? He demanded. Those ships, Alliance? Pirates? Her gaze shifted slowly toward the viewport, where specks of light were cutting through the atmosphere. Neither. They're human. That single word hit harder than any explosion. Rian blinked, checking the transponder feed. She was right, the approaching fleet carried the insignia of the Galactic Authority. The hell would they be doing out here? He muttered. This planet's unregistered. Alara said nothing. She didn't have to. The implication was clear. Someone had been watching all along, waiting for this. The comm unit crackled to life, the signal harsh and official. Unidentified vessel, this is the Galactic Authority Enforcement Division. You are harboring a prohibited Level X entity. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Rian stared at the speaker. Level X entity? Alara closed her eyes. That's what they call us. Things too old to exist. The voice continued, calm but cold. Failure to comply will be treated as an act of aggression. You have 60 seconds. Rian swallowed, his pulse thudding in his ears. He looked at Alara. If they're authority, maybe they can help. Maybe they can explain. Her head snapped up, eyes blazing now with light. No, you don't understand. If they capture me, humanity ends with you. The words hung in the air like the crack of thunder that followed them. Rian hesitated, torn between every instinct he'd ever trusted and the terrible certainty in her voice. That sounds a lot like something a dangerous entity would say, he muttered. Alara's expression softened, and for the first time, fear. Not mystery, not defiance, but real fear, crossed her face. I'm not lying, Rian. They won't destroy me. They'll use me, and when they do, you'll cease to exist. Why me? Because you're the one who woke me, she whispered. The one my code recognized. Outside, the fleet drew closer. Sleek authority vessels, gleaming like daggers against the smoke of the sky. The lead ship deployed its landing craft. The timer on Rian's screen hit 30 seconds. He gritted his teeth. If I surrender you, what happens? They'll take me apart, she said softly. And they'll find you inside me. He froze. That doesn't even make sense. It will, she said. When you remember everything. 20 seconds. Rian paced the cabin, mind racing. He could feel his moral compass splitting right down the middle, duty versus instinct, logic versus the whispering pull that told him she was right. He'd seen too much already. The glowing code in her veins, the way the planet had answered her, the voice that had called him by name. 10 seconds. He slammed his hand on the console, overriding the ship's systems. Hold on. Alara's eyes widened. What are you doing? Making a decision I'll probably regret. 5 seconds. He powered the engines and launched the ship skyward. The thrusters screamed in protest as they broke through the atmosphere, vapor trails slicing across the clouds. Behind them, the comm erupted with shouts. Unidentified vessel. Stand down immediately. You are in violation of. Rian cut the channel. Not today. The first authority fighter swooped in, firing a plasma bolt that skimmed their hull. The shockwave threw the ship sideways. Rian fought the controls, cursing under his breath. Guess we're doing this the hard way. Alara clutched the armrest, her voice urgent. They'll track your signature. You can't outrun them. Then help me. She hesitated. There's a way. But it'll hurt you. Everything hurts lately, he said through gritted teeth. Do it. She reached over and pressed her hand against the console. The entire ship vibrated as her skin lit up, fusing briefly with the control surface. Lines of code streamed across the monitors in a language Rian couldn't read. The lights dimmed, then shifted to the same silver tone as her glow. "Hold your breath," she whispered. "Why?" The ship vanished from radar. Every sensor, every scanner, every detection field suddenly showed nothing but static. The Authority fleet slowed, confused. Rian exhaled shakily. "You cloaked us." "Not cloaked," she said weakly. "Erased." He turned toward her. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Her glow was fading again, flickering like a dying star. "Alara?" She slumped forward, and Rian caught her before she hit the deck. Her pulse was faint, erratic, the rhythm of her coated blood faltering. He laid her down gently, his heart pounding. "Stay with me." Her lips moved, barely audible. "You shouldn't have run." "Yeah, well," he said, forcing a grin he didn't feel. "You're not exactly the easiest passenger." A faint smile tugged at her mouth. "You still don't understand. Running only delays it. The moment you remembered me, they marked you." "Who did?" She opened her eyes, and for a brief, terrifying instant, Rian saw two pupils. One human, one alien, overlapping. "The architects." He froze. "The ones who built the cradle?" "No," she whispered. "The ones who built you." The ship jolted suddenly, alarms screaming. He glanced at the sensors. One of the Authority vessels had fired a tracking flare. The flare wasn't aiming for their ship. It was scanning space itself, sweeping wide arcs, hunting for their interference trail. "They're adapting," he said grimly. "They'll find us in minutes. Then we go underground," Alara murmured. "There's nothing underground," he argued. She looked up at him, her eyes burning with determination. "There will be." He frowned, about to ask what she meant, when the ship's autopilot suddenly engaged. The coordinates on the screen changed, setting a course for the planet's surface, but not the same landing site. Somewhere deeper, further from any Authority maps. "Alara, what is this?" "The vault," she said simply. "You asked what was inside the machine. That's where it leads." Rian hesitated. "You said the vault was what destroyed your people." She nodded weakly. "It's also the only place we can hide." Outside, the planet filled the viewport again, glowing faintly from the cracks, still bleeding light. The Authority fleet was still above, descending fast. Rian had no choice but to follow the coordinates. As they dove through the atmosphere, fire licked the hull. The turbulence was brutal, shaking the ship until he could barely keep control. The ground rose to meet them, a storm of light and dust swirling where the column had been. "Alara, this place is collapsing. It's rebuilding," she whispered. The clouds split, revealing the center of the crater. The same circular structure, but now open like an enormous iris, its core pulsing with white fire. Rian could barely see through the glare. "We're going to burn up. Trust it," she said. "It remembers you." He didn't understand what she meant until they crossed the threshold, and the light that should have killed them instead folded around the ship like a cocoon, slowing them, lowering them gently into the abyss. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed them was the Authority fleet above, scanning desperately, unable to detect a trace. And in the silence that followed, Alara whispered, "Now you'll see why they're afraid of you." In the ship's dim cockpit, the stars stretched like burning threads across the black, endless ocean of space. Rian's knuckles were white against the control yoke as their stolen vessel drifted silently between sensor shadows. Every few seconds, Alara's breath hitched, a soft tremor cutting through the hum of failing engines. Her skin glowed faintly, silver veins pulsing with data he could almost hear. On the monitor, fragments of the code he'd extracted from her blood assembled into constellations that didn't match any known system. The pattern resembled a spiral, then a sphere, then a word. Origin. He zoomed in, heart pounding, and saw the coordinates burned into the pattern's core. Couldn't be right. "That system's off-limits," he muttered. "That's Sector 0. There's nothing there. No habitable worlds, no trade routes." His voice trailed as the display resolved into a familiar blue and white sphere suspended in shadow. Earth. The name rose in his chest like a ghost. Humanity's cradle, destroyed in the Great Collapse, buried under centuries of rewritten records. Yet here it was, flickering in alien code inside the blood of the girl he'd bought for 2 credits. Alara opened her eyes. "You've seen it," she whispered. "Now you understand why they wanted me erased." Rian's throat tightened. "Earth doesn't exist. It can't. Not as you remember it," she said. "But its seed never died. They made sure of that." She reached out, pressing her palm to the display. The map shimmered, layers unfolding like petals, revealing deeper routes hidden beneath the surface. Quantum corridors, ancient jump paths far older than any human archive. "Who made this?" he demanded. "Your people. Ours," she corrected softly. "We were never separate." The words hit him harder than any weapon. He thought back to the genetic anomalies the med scanner had flagged in her cells, the faint human markers embedded in her alien DNA. "You're saying humans? And your kind? We were born from the same seed," she said. "But your leaders couldn't accept that truth. They feared what it meant, so they rewrote it." The stars outside seemed to tilt. Rian felt the weight of history bending around him, centuries of lies unraveling. He remembered the old Academy lectures about the collapse, the supposed alien war that ended Earth. But what if it wasn't a war at all? What if it was a purge? "The Council," he breathed. "They erased it. They erased us." Alarms flared suddenly. Proximity alert. He lunged for the console and saw 3 red signatures on the scanner. Fast, coordinated, closing in. The same ships that had been hunting them since the desert. "They found us," he hissed. Alara's eyes glowed faintly blue. "They were always close. The signal inside me calls to them." "Then shut it off." "I can't," she said. "Not without killing what's left of me." Rian slammed his fist against the panel. He'd been a soldier once, trained to eliminate threats, not protect them. But now every instinct screamed that this girl wasn't the threat. The people chasing her were. He switched to manual control, diverting all power to the engines. The ship shuddered violently as the boosters ignited, flinging them toward the outer dark. "We can't outrun them," he said. "No," she replied. "But we can go where they won't follow." She reached across the console, her trembling fingers inputting the coordinates etched in her DNA. "Origin." Rian hesitated. "If that really is Earth, we don't know what's waiting there." "You don't want to remember," she said quietly. "But your blood already does." He looked at her, and for a heartbeat, he saw the metallic city from his dreams. Its towers alive with fire, its people with eyes like hers. He'd thought those memories were implants or trauma fragments. But what if they were real? "Alara," he whispered. "What am I?" Her gaze softened with something like pity. "The last echo," she said. "You were made to forget so you could live among them. You were one of us before they rebuilt you." Before he could respond, the ship lurched, a railgun blast tearing across the starboard wing. Sparks rained down. Gravity flickered. "They're disabling us," Rian shouted. "If we stay, we die." "Then we jump," she said, pressing her hand against the navigation core. The console lit up with a white, searing light. Symbols, human, alien, and something in between, spiraled together in perfect resonance. The ship began to hum, not with mechanical energy but something deeper, organic, as though the hull itself were remembering. Rian grabbed her arm. "If we jump blind..." "It's not blind," she whispered. "It's home." The light swallowed everything. Time fractured. For an instant, Rian saw visions. Oceans swallowing cities, skies burning gold, humans and aliens standing together beneath shattered moons. And then silence. The ship floated in a vast, eerie calm. Ahead of them hung a world, scarred, luminous, half alive. Blue oceans shimmered with strange energy, and metallic spires jutted through the clouds like the bones of titans. Earth, or what had become of it. Rian couldn't breathe. "It's real," he murmured. Alara's eyes glowed brighter now, reflecting the planet's pale light. "No," she said. "It's waking." He frowned. "Waking?" But before she could answer, the console erupted in a cascade of new signals, dozens of unidentified transmissions beaming from the planet's surface. Some were human, some were not, and one, repeating over and over, carried his own name. The black market of Dareth Prime was a city without a sky, a maze of metallic alleys and flickering neon where every breath tasted of rust, oil, and fear. Rian's boots echoed softly against the rain-slick metal as he led Alara through the crowd, their faces hidden beneath tattered cloaks. Above them, drones buzzed like insects, scanning barcodes etched into the flesh of slaves and fugitives. The air was thick with the murmur of bargaining and the screams of those being sold. He'd been here before, long ago, when he still believed orders meant justice. Now, every sound in this place scraped at the guilt he carried. Alara walked silently beside him, her silver-glowing veins faintly visible under the fabric. Her steps were unsteady, her breaths shallow. Each time their eyes met, Rian felt the weight of what he was about to do. The betrayal, the trade, the lie that might save her or destroy her completely. They reached the trading pit, a circle of steel platforms suspended over molten vents. At the center, a towering figure in black armor awaited them. Trader Vex, a human only in the biological sense. His eyes were replaced with red optics, his voice distorted into a digital growl. "Captain Rian Mercer," Vex said, as though savoring the name. "I thought you were dead." "Almost," Rian muttered. He shoved Alara forward. "I'm here to sell her. Level X entity. She's worth more than your entire fleet." The crowd reacted instantly. Murmurs, gasps, the sound of credit chips snapping in greedy hands. Alara didn't resist, didn't speak. She just stared at him with those impossibly calm eyes, and for a heartbeat, he almost broke. "You know what she is?" Vex asked, circling her like a predator. "Every scanner on this side of the sector's been screaming for her signature. Which means every ship in range is coming," Rian replied. "You want her, you take her now. But we split the bounty 50-50. Vex laughed. A hollow, metallic sound. 50-50? You're bold, Mercer. What makes you think I won't take both of you?" Rian's hand hovered near his blaster, but his pulse stayed steady. "Because if you kill me before the handoff, you won't know how to deactivate the failsafe." The laughter stopped. Vex tilted his head. "Failsafe?" Rian smiled faintly. "She's not just carrying data. She's carrying a trigger." For a moment, even the roaring vents below seemed to hold their breath. Vex looked from Rian to Alara, scanning her vitals. "I detect nothing unusual." "You wouldn't," Rian said quietly. "It's coded into her blood. You'll see." He turned and walked away, forcing himself not to look back. The crowd parted, whispers following him like smoke. He knew what they were thinking: traitor, coward, seller of souls. But none of them knew the truth. He'd just set the entire planet on a countdown. By the time he reached the exit docks, the first surge hit. The lights flickered, screens glitched, drones spiraled from the sky, crashing into the stalls. Somewhere deep below, engines roared, then died. A ripple of darkness spread through Dareth Prime, an expanding wave of silence. The market's main power core had just gone offline. Rian sprinted toward his ship as alarms blared. A woman screamed as a tower of holographic ads collapsed in a shower of sparks. Traders shouted. Guards fired blindly into the dark, and then the entire city plunged into blackness. He climbed aboard his shuttle, breath ragged, watching as the neon glow outside faded to nothing. He didn't dare activate his comms, not yet. Every system could be tracked. Instead, he stared out the viewport, waiting. The blackout spread like wildfire, one district after another falling dark. Somewhere in that chaos, Alara was being dragged away, her body scanned, analyzed, maybe even restrained. But he'd seen the faint shimmer in her eyes before they took her. A silent promise. A soft tone pinged through the ship. One encrypted message had found its way through the dying network, addressed to his private frequency. The signal was old, analog, almost primal. He opened it. A single line of text glowed on the screen. "Find the vault." His breath caught. The words burned into his mind like a command. He replayed every phrase she'd whispered since the auction, every fragmented memory she'd unlocked. "The vault," he murmured. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a place. He pulled up the decoded fragments from her blood data. Within the spiraling patterns and map sequences, he saw it. A hidden structure buried beneath the ruins of Earth, somewhere beneath the old Atlantic Trench. A facility older than any recorded colony, marked with one symbol he couldn't forget. The same mark branded on his own wrist when he was a soldier. The emblem of Project Origin. The deck trembled as distant explosions echoed through the void outside. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Not when he'd just condemned her to hell for the chance that she might live. The comm crackled suddenly. Static, then a faint, trembling voice. "Rian." It was her. Weak, distorted, but unmistakable. "They know now." The code woke them. "You can't hide." "Alara, where are you?" he said, his voice breaking. "They're coming for you too," she whispered. "Because you remember." Her words were swallowed by a rising roar, then silence. The transmission cut off, leaving only the hum of emergency power and the fading echo of her voice. Rian closed his eyes. The betrayal had worked, but it had cost him everything. He leaned forward, entering the coordinates from her last message. The vault. His ship's engines whined to life, dim and wounded but enough. As the stars stretched ahead, Rian felt something shifting inside him. A pulse, faint but growing. The same signal that once came from her blood was now inside his. And somewhere, deep beneath the dead oceans of Earth, something ancient was waking. Something that had waited for him all along. The vault wasn't built for visitors. It was buried so deep beneath the remnants of Earth that Rian's ship nearly tore itself apart, descending into the gravity well. The oceans above were long gone, replaced by a crust of black glass and ash that crackled against the hull as he broke through. Below it, beneath layers of radiation shielding and ancient steel, a forgotten city slept in the dark. When the ship finally landed on a platform carved from obsidian, he stepped out into silence. No air, no sound, only the faint hum of old machines breathing for the first time in centuries. The vault's entrance loomed before him. A colossal gate marked with twin sigils, one human, one alien, woven together in perfect symmetry. His heart pounded as he placed his hand against the panel. The metal shimmered, scanning the pattern of his veins. A voice whispered from nowhere. "Welcome back, Subject 9. He froze. The gate unsealed with a hiss, releasing a stale breath of preserved air. A corridor stretched beyond, lined with pods filled with liquid light. Inside each one floated a shape. Human, almost. Their features were familiar yet impossibly foreign. Elongated limbs, faint luminescent veins like Alara's, and faces that looked asleep but aware. Rian's boots echoed softly as he walked through the chamber, his flashlight cutting through the mist. Dozens of pods, then hundreds. Some bore the markings of alien script, others human barcodes. He stopped before one labeled Prototype Series, Homogenesis. His own reflection stared back at him through the glass, merging with the figure inside. A hybrid that looked disturbingly like him. The overhead lights flickered on. A holographic interface projected from the center of the room, forming a ghostly woman made of light and static. Archive sequence initiated. The AI intoned. Humanity, the failed iteration. Created by directive of the Etherian Council to sustain biological memory after the Great Collapse. Rian's throat went dry. "The Etherian Council," he whispered. "Alara's kind." The hologram turned to him. "Affirmative. Humans were designed to preserve fragments of Etherian consciousness in simplified organic hosts. You were the experiment that survived extinction." He stumbled back. His chest ached as though the air itself were crushing him. "No," he muttered. "We built cities. We built ships. We colonized the stars." "Correct," the AI said. "Your kind evolved beyond intended parameters. The memory inhibitors failed. The Etherians attempted reclamation, but the genetic drift was irreversible. Thus began the rebellion of the seeds. Your species' revolt against your creators. The chamber's walls shifted, projecting images. Wars fought in the void, worlds burning. The silhouettes of alien ships and human fleets clashing. It wasn't history. It was memory. Rian fell to his knees, gripping his head as flashes tore through his mind. Images of himself standing beside luminous beings, their eyes full of sorrow. He heard a voice, faint but familiar. "You'll forget us, Rian. But one day, when the vault calls, you'll remember what you were meant to protect." He gasped, shaking. The AI continued. Directive 7 remains unfulfilled. Retrieval subject, Alara Prime. Last active code sequence detected within orbit of Dareth Prime. "Alara," he breathed. "You called her Prime. What is she?" The hologram's expression flickered. Alara was the final synthesis, the bridge between human and Etherian, designed by the last human scientists, not by us. Her purpose, restore balance, protect both species from extinction. He stared up at the projection. "You're saying humans created her?" "Affirmative. Project Origin was reversed. You were once the experiment. Then your creators became extinct, and you became the creator. She was your final legacy." The truth struck like a blade. The alien girl he had bought for 2 credits wasn't an artifact of a dead race. She was the last hope humanity left behind for its own redemption. Rian stood slowly, his mind burning with questions. If she's the key, why do they want her dead? The hologram dimmed, its voice lowering. Because her awakening will end the cycle. Both species cannot coexist if the truth is known. The governing Etherian factions require control, not balance. He clenched his fists. "Then why am I here?" "You were designed as her protector," it said. "A dormant guardian, buried in false memory. You were never meant to awaken unless she was in danger." The floor shuddered. Distant rumbling echoed through the vault's corridors. Warning lights flashed red. The hologram's voice distorted. "They have found this facility. Termination protocol in." The sound cut to static. Rian spun toward the exit, but something caught his eye. A single pod at the end of the hall glowing brighter than the rest. He approached, drawn by an instinct older than thought. Inside, a body floated, identical to Alara, but lifeless. The label read, "Alara Alpha, Core Template." His pulse raced. "What are you?" he whispered. Then, from within the chamber, a low hum began to build. The pods around him vibrated as if awakening. The bodies stirred. A voice echoed faintly through the calm, fragmented by static. "Rian." His head snapped up. Her voice. "Alara? Where are you?" "Not where," she said weakly. "But when?" "They've triggered the memory collapse. You must choose, save the vault or save me." He gripped the console, torn between duty and desperation. "If the vault falls, everything we were dies. But if I lose you," she interrupted softly, "you'll lose yourself either way." The chamber walls cracked as tremors grew stronger. Liquid spilled from the pods. Alarms screamed. He looked once more at her clone floating in the pod, then at the flickering hologram now collapsing into static snow. The AI's final words broke through the distortion. "Subject 9, protect the bridge." Then everything went black. The ground split open beneath his feet, revealing a shaft of blinding light shooting upward through the ruins. Rian was thrown back, the vault collapsing around him, machines shrieking as power surged uncontrollably. In the light, he saw images, Earth reborn, human and alien forms merging, and Alara standing at the heart of it all. When the light finally faded, Rian was lying on the cracked floor, half buried in debris. The vault was gone. The pods, the AI, everything. But in the ashes beside him, one thing remained. A crystal sphere pulsing with faint blue light. Inside it was Alara's face, whispering only one word. "Run." The stars burned with unnatural brightness as the fleets arrived, massive silver arcs cutting through the void like blades. Rian stood at the edge of what was left of the vault, his body bruised, his ship crippled, his mind a storm of fragments that no longer felt like dreams. Above him, the Etherean armada spread across the horizon, its ships glimmering with cold precision, their purpose singular: erase everything that remained of the truth. Every trace of Alara, every trace of what he had become. He crouched over the console of his half-buried shuttle, fingers trembling as he tried to stabilize the transmitter. The crystal sphere, the last remnant of her, rested beside him, pulsing with soft blue light. It wasn't just a recording. It was her essence, her code, her consciousness preserved in pure energy. "Come on," he muttered, rerouting power from the failing core. Just one more signal, one more message. The static cleared. The sphere flickered brighter. Her voice filled the cabin, faint but steady, like the echo of a heartbeat. "Rian, they're coming." "I know," he whispered, "but they won't find you. Not this time." Outside, the sky was tearing apart. Ion cannons firing down into the crust, vaporizing stone and metal alike. He could feel the tremors through his boots. The vault's remains wouldn't last long. But his plan didn't depend on walls or weapons. It depended on memory. The transmitter roared to life, bathing the ruins in white light. Across the system, satellites that hadn't been active for centuries flickered awake. Ancient human beacons, forgotten relics orbiting dead worlds, began syncing to a frequency embedded in the sphere's code. The signal Alara had once carried in her blood. He hesitated for only a moment, then pressed the final command. Broadcast full spectrum. The signal erupted outward, invisible yet infinite, racing faster than light. It leapt from satellite to satellite, system to system, until it reached every world still under human control. Every implant, every neural archive, every buried genetic sequence. And then it began. Across the galaxy, billions of humans froze as their minds flooded with visions. Cities of metal and light, oceans that sang. Voices that weren't theirs but somehow felt familiar. They saw what humanity had once been, not the children of the stars, but the remnants of something older, born from a union of flesh and energy, of memory and creation. They saw the truth of their origin. And they remembered. In orbit, the Etherean flagship faltered. Its crew cried out as their own bodies began to glow faintly blue, the same hue as Alara's veins. The truth didn't discriminate. It spread to them too, crossing boundaries of species and blood. Some screamed in fear, others wept in awe. Entire fleets stopped firing, engines drifting cold. Rian fell to his knees as the feedback surged through him. The memories came like fire, his own life unraveling, replaced by flashes of lives that weren't his. 1,000 generations, 1,000 voices. He was one of them. He was all of them. Then, amid the chaos, she appeared. Alara stepped out of the light, her form translucent, woven from data and memory. Her presence made the air hum. "You did it," she said softly. "They remember." He looked up at her, his voice breaking. "What happens now?" Her expression was calm, but her eyes held sorrow. "Now they understand what we tried to stop." "The collapse?" he asked. "The destruction?" She shook her head slowly. "No, the evolution." He frowned. "I don't. We didn't warn you about the end," she interrupted gently. "We warned you about becoming us." Her words struck deep, colder than any weapon. Around them, the ground trembled, not from bombardment, but from something awakening beneath. The air shimmered with energy, and the stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with the signal. The memories weren't just awakening minds. They were reactivating dormant code within humanity's very DNA. The same code that had once consumed the Ethereans, merging them into a collective consciousness until individuality vanished. Rian staggered backward. "You mean this signal, it's rewriting them?" "It's not rewriting," she said softly. "It's returning. We created you to hold what we lost. Empathy, emotion, choice. But now you've returned the gift, and with it, the same curse." The light around her began to fade, pixelating into drifting shards. He reached out instinctively. Alara, don't go. Tell me how to stop it. Her form flickered, her voice barely a whisper. You can't stop what's already begun, but you can remind them how to choose. He shook his head desperately. No, there has to be another way. She smiled faintly, stepping closer until her palm touched his chest. You were the experiment who learned to care. That's what makes you different. That's what makes them worth saving. The ground split open, releasing a column of blinding energy. Her image wavered. Goodbye, Rian. He grabbed the sphere as she vanished, pressing it against his heart. Outside, the sky turned white. The Etherean fleet fractured into waves of light, their ships dissolving into motes that drifted into the upper atmosphere. Across the galaxy, billions of people fell to their knees, overwhelmed by visions of both wonder and terror, the knowledge of what they once were and what they might become again. When the light faded, Earth was silent. Smoke curled upward from the crater where the vault had been. Rian stood alone amid the ruins, the crystal sphere now dark in his hands. For a long time he said nothing. Then, faintly, he heard her voice again, no longer from the sphere, but from everywhere, woven into the wind, the dust, the pulse of the world. Now you understand. He looked toward the horizon. In the distance, the first dawn broke over the blackened surface of Earth. And for the first time, the light felt both human and alien at once. Rian smiled weakly. Yeah, he whispered. I understand. Above him, the stars blinked in patterns that looked almost like eyes watching back. Waiting, remembering, dreaming of what humanity would choose to become next.